Suffering Podcast. Thank you for sticking with us for part one of A Guardian Angel with Jenn and Keith Shibley. There's just too much information to put out there in one episode, so stay tuned for part two. It starts now. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Felice, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. And of course, follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to when we're up to it. So we spent the entire first episode talking about you and your journey through the FBI and how you two came to be next to each other on the job with the JTTF and the task force and all this stuff. And you're in the beginning stages, Keith, of your throes with addiction. You as a supervisor, and you want to know things about their personal life. You get them in that circle, like you said. What did you notice anything?
So that was what was very strange. And obviously looking back years later, no. In fact, Keith was always at work. He was always angry and grumpy, so that wouldn't have changed. I did know he was in a lot of pain with his back. He often talked about the injections and having problems with his back and was complaining about it. But otherwise, he never went to happy hours, never saw him drink. In fact, in all the time on that squad, I only saw Keith drunk one time, and that was at an FBI Secret Service hockey game. That was the only time.
It's appropriate.
And that is an appropriate spot where he would have been drunk. In fact, we took a picture that night. Aside from that, I never saw him drunk. No one on the squad came to me saying, hey, I think there's a problem, or I think Keith is having issues with alcohol. Never was brought to my attention. In fact, I pretty much consider him a master of disguise. Really. He hid it very, very well, and he hid it for a considerable amount of time.
That's the thing about addicts, right, Keith? We are fantastic, Oscar-worthy actors.
Yep, 100%.
So, Keith, you were here on episode 177.
Yep.
And how we met is kind of a weird story. I think you reached out to me on social media,
Yeah,
right?
Instagram, yeah.
And Instagram, and we just started talking. It's all of us. We just started talking. You were having some issues with something or something like that, or I don't know if you heard a show. I don't even know how you found us, to be honest with you.
I saw a show and just reached out to you, told you I liked your show, then told you a little bit about my recovery, and we just ended up chatting on the phone and went from there.
Professed his undying love for me. It was weird.
For
it
Kevin.
Was very weird.
It's all in the name.
You know, there was something about you, right? And we'll get back to the energy thing. Even through the phone, there's something about you that just kept me talking to this guy and kept me talking to this guy until one day he comes and travels up here, and I know you were you had a little trepidation coming in. You were a little, I don't know whether you were nervous or not, but it was, you were holding back, right? You weren't sure if you were ready. So why don't you give our audience just a little Reader's Digest version, a little recap of episode 177 that you were on?
Just growing up, I drank occasionally, drank like a normal high school, college kid, whatever. Wanted to be a cop forever. Never touched drugs, man. I smoked marijuana, I believe, twice in my life. But my goal was to be a police officer. So I didn't mess with that stuff. Fast forward to 2015.
If I recall correctly, you kept away from it because it might sideline or derail your want to become a cop.
Correct.
See, I got a good memory. Yeah. That was a long time ago, man. You are episode 2. We are in episode 242.
Wow.
Just so you know, that's 70 episodes ago.
I kind of just, that was my goal, so I was kind of living my life to achieve that goal. And when I became a police officer in 2002, went to a few different departments, and then 2010 went to the JTTF, and a lot of stuff bothered me throughout those years that, you just didn't want to talk about because you didn't want to be labeled. So I just kept all that stuff in, and alcohol in law enforcement was a routine thing. Choir practice in the parking lot was a routine thing. You drank on good days, you drank on bad days, you drank on weekends.
Every cop wedding you've ever been to, what's the key ingredient?
Open bar, cash bar.
That's it. Cash bar? What are you, cheap?
Yeah, right.
Jeez, come on.
So, drinking became more of a regular thing, but it wasn't an issue. And 2015, it was 2014, 2015, it was right after the Navy Yard active shooter that I responded to. I ruptured 2 discs in my back, and to avoid surgery, I was getting spinal shots in my spine, epidurals.
Epidurals, yeah.
To try to shrink the ruptures there. And the doctor gave me opiates, man. Love that shit from day one. The first pill I took, I found it, man. I could sleep like a baby. The thoughts that bothered me weren't there anymore. Gave me energy during the day. I was cooking and cleaning. That's why a lot of people didn't notice anything, because they made me feel amazing. And addiction didn't cross my mind. So I go to the doctor one day and tell him that I think I'm getting addicted because I got to take 2 instead of 1. He convinces me that we just need to up my dose. So that's what we do. Ride that train a little while. And I know I'm addicted at this point, and I don't care. I just do not care. I go back to him again. I'm like, hey, man, I'm getting used to these again. He goes, should we up your dose again? I said, hell yeah, we should. And that's what we did.
Piece of work, these doctors, aren't they?
So I would drink on the opiates, but it wasn't like a stumbling drunk mess. And that's how I was able to hide it for a while. When I started going through my medicine too fast, those handful of days where I had nothing, I would binge drink because I didn't want to feel the dope sickness, which is stupid because the alcohol makes your dope sickness 10 times worse. But I would just drink to blackout because
dope sickness. I got to tell you, I've gone through it. When I had shoulder surgery, we spoke about this on your episode. When I had shoulder surgery, I took that just like you. I took it as prescribed. I didn't take extra. I took it as prescribed. 3 months, I got to get back to work. I'm like, I got to get off this stuff. I can't go back to work on an opiate. And 3 days, I lay down and my skin's crawling. I'm like, oh, this is dope sickness. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. All right. So
that's where the problem started. But they started at home because instead of the choir practice and the happy hours with the guys, by the time Jenn became my boss, I was isolating completely. I was home.
I was wondering, did it have something to do with you're working with the FBI? All right, you have to maintain a certain persona to work with the top agency in the land, and they can't see that stuff.
Yeah,
like they're going to take you off. They're going to get kicked off. Did that ever cross your mind?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, not only that, I'm the only police officer in my department other than the chief and deputy chief with a top secret clearance, and I answer to them. So yeah, I was petrified of someone seeing because I didn't want to get kicked off, and ego's up here, and like we talked about before, ego was up here, family was here, God was kind of lost at the time. So everything I did was to try to preserve that, and I didn't do anything to preserve my home life at the time. When I knew I couldn't sustain that and finally got off of them, which was awful, my drinking went through the roof, and it was every day. It was when I got home to the time I passed out, usually get up, drink again, pass out again, and then go to work. But I wouldn't let anybody see me. I did it in my house, and was able to hide it from people.
Nothing like making you feel like a man and drinking in solitude.
Disgust looking at yourself in the mirror while you're drinking in the bathroom of your basement. It was awful.
It gets so bad. Like when I was in full blown alcoholism, I used to have a little place in my garage that my wife's 5'2". Okay, she can't see up there. She can't reach up there. My kids are little at the time. They can't get to it. So it was a safe place. But if you looked all around, you would never be able to see anything. But I knew where it was, and I went in there, and then you put it right back. Yep. Nobody saw anything. It wasn't until I decided to go to rehab that my wife even knew I had a problem. Okay, it wasn't until recently, I'm talking within the last 3 years, that she knew I had bottles hidden everywhere.
Yeah, well, my wife knew because I believe there's a picture somewhere of how many bottles she found in the garage, in the basement, and the trunk of a car, just wherever I had to hide them. But
is Virginia one of those things where you get 5 cents for recycling?
I don't know. I never did try that.
Hey, listen, man, you gotta make some money.
That would have been a good beer money.
You gotta make lemonade out of lemon somehow, bro. It's there.
But yeah, so Jenn came in 2015, and she got to know all her people. And, through the police department, through the FBI, I had a lot of bosses. The Washington field office with the FBI was kind of like a stepping stone office because headquarters was right there. So you got a lot of bosses for 2 or 3 years, and they would move on. So I believe I had like 5 SSAs or supervisor special agents in the 10 years I was there. So it was like every 2 years. But I mean, Jen was just different. She got to know her people, man. And you got to know her. Like, I knew her whole family. She knew our whole family.
Well, it humanizes people when you do that, right?
And we would do, because I'm a firearms instructor for our PD. So Jen would pull me aside. She goes, "You're a firearms instructor. Why don't we do a squad day at the range? Set it up." And we would go to the range as a squad and just have shooting competitions and
That's some fun.
Team building type stuff, man. It wasn't all about produce. It was getting to know your people.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you do that, and like I said, it humanizes the people underneath you. Because how many bosses really get a kick out of dehumanizing the people underneath you? They don't want to know anything about you. As a matter of fact, they take joy when your life's going to shit. But when you humanize somebody, you can instruct them or guide them. You look at somebody a little bit different. You don't look at them as an employee, as an underling. You look at them as a human being with their own personal problems and their family and all that stuff. And I think it makes you a more effective boss because you approach them with a little bit more compassion.
So I was going to say, I remember being told by one of my bosses that I cared more about my squad and my people than I did about management. That was said directly to me. "Jen, you care more about your people and your squad than you do about management."
You should wear that like a badge of honor.
And I said, I remember at the time closing the door and saying, "Do you like your job?" And the person said, "Yes, I like my job." I'm like, "Great, because I would never want your job if it means I can't care for my people." And I said, "And just for the record, those people out there on this squad would walk through any door with me because they trust me and I trust them. So I'll continue caring for my people."
A good boss looks out for their people, not over their people.
Absolutely. And it wasn't, in my mind, I saw caring about my people as a strength, but there were times that I was looked at as the oddball, and that was something that I was actually called parochial for, that I was parochial, and that I cared too much. Now, I will say this. As I grew in being a supervisor, it was a matter of opening my optics and widening the aperture. So as much as I can care about my team and my people, I did have to open up, broaden, how does it impact everything else around me? And I think that there's value in that. But I was never not going to care about my people.
What that does, that's got a multifaceted result at the end here. So what that does, because I've had those bosses, right? I've had those bosses that I just adored. They taught me so many lessons. Your people underneath you are gonna learn more. That's the first thing. Second thing is they're gonna work extra hard because they like you as a boss and they want to make you proud. That's what a good boss does. They want to make you proud. So maybe they won't do something stupid, because we all do something stupid. We all do stupid things, Maybe they won't do something stupid. Nah, that would embarrass the boss. I don't want to do that stuff, So Keith, you start tumbling down this road of addiction, and when did it start to crack where you needed to get some help?
It started to crack at home for a while. And it was causing pretty major issues. But in 2018, I was in Europe. One of my sisters was in Lebanon and Beirut, and she was like, "You're right here. Why don't you come party with me for a week? Take a week vacation." I said, "That's an amazing idea." And I did. And I remember snapshots of that week, man. It was embarrassing.
No good story ever starts with, "Hey, I had this salad once."
Right. At the end of that week, though, my sister flew back to Dulles. She was going to sleep off the jet lag at my house, and then drive, the couple hours to Richmond. And I went back to Europe, and then I went home a couple days later. But she had a discussion with my wife, and she said, I don't know what's been going on here, but the amount of alcohol Keith just drank is insane. And if we don't do something right now, he is going to fucking die. So I showed up 2 days later, and my wife was super nice to me. I thought she just missed me. But, you know, my detective in me was like, something's fishy here, but I'm going to take the win. And I went to bed. And then next day was the intervention stuff you see on TV, man. My whole family showed up with all this stuff. And, you know, they said what they had to say, and I really don't remember what anybody had to say other than her. And she was just like, this is it. Like, it's rehab tomorrow, or me and the kids are out.
Now you have a problem. You have to communicate that with your boss.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's going to be time lost from work. How do you approach that?
That was the scariest thing about that phone call. The several phone calls I had to make to the PD and to the FBI, I was petrified. I was losing it. I was bawling like a baby. I didn't know what I was going to say. I called the PD first. The first phone call didn't go so hot. The second one went okay. And then I called Jenn, and I believe it was a Sunday, and I just called her and I told her, I said, Jenn, I'm pretty messed up. I've got a problem with alcohol and I can't stop, and I'm not going to be at work because I need to go get help. And surprisingly, not surprisingly actually, because I knew Jenn pretty well. Jenn was very supportive, and she said, thank you for telling me, and your job will be waiting for you when you get back.
God, why can't I have a boss like that where I was? It's like, no, you do this or you're fired. That's the way my bosses did things.
But that's what she said, and you know, we talked a little bit after that. But it was not what I expected from, you know, as good as your boss is in the FBI, it's the FBI, man, and it stops you.
Yeah.
Clearance, hey, this, and you're gone. And I thought my career, I for sure thought I was never going back to the FBI. I thought my career in law enforcement was probably 80% gone too, and I'd be cutting parking tickets in a parking lot as a traffic control person or something. But she said your job will be waiting for you when you get back. I was like, whatever, Jenn, you're full of shit. But okay, I appreciate you being so nice. And then,
now looking at it from your perspective, can you tell me and let us in on what's going on behind the scenes? You're telling him one thing, but your mind is working. If you're a good supervisor, you're like, how am I going to make this work? What's going to happen? I got bosses to answer to. I got all these different things I got to do. What's going on behind the scenes in your head?
Well, first and foremost, that call was a shock because he had hid it for so long. I had no idea. So it hit me like a ton of bricks.
Do you think you missed something?
You always think you miss something at that point when the call comes like that.
You are an FBI agent. You're supposed to be the best.
And that's what makes it, and I think that's what makes it unnerving, is that, what did I miss? How could I miss
What
this?
else am I missing?
I was super engaged with them. I was talking to him all the time. How did I miss that? So, of course, that crosses your mind. But when he called and made that admission that he had a problem, and it was alcohol, and he had an addiction, and he needed help, those words were, to me, an absolute courageous thing to have done. And the reason why it was so impactful when it came in is just months before, I lost a very dear friend, and it was to an alcohol addiction. And
So it hit home on a different level.
So it hit home because that friend, she was 40 years old. She left behind a son. You know, she was going through a rough time and going through a divorce, and there was a lot going on in her life, but she was a dear friend to me, and she was also one that hid it very well for a long time. So I had just lost that friend, and I had been in the hospital where she was with mutual colleagues and her mother on the day that her mother had to decide to take her off of life support. And I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget the look. I'll never forget the sounds that just hit me so deeply. So I had just had that months before. And the one thing in that horrible situation, I just wished she would ask for help. Like, she wouldn't admit she needed help. So when his call came, when Keith called and said, I have a problem, I was like, oh my goodness, this is what we need to help somebody.
He didn't ask for help. He did, but your hand was forced. Okay? That's the point.
Well, he said he needed it.
No. The only reason you said you needed it is because your wife said it's either do this or me and the kids are gone, which, okay, it gets real. If she had never said that, like, you need to get sober, and that's how she left it, I don't know whether you would have done it.
I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
The horrible part about addiction is I wanted to stop for so long. I wasn't one of those that was like, oh, I don't have a problem. I knew I was jacked up, bro. And I wanted to stop. I couldn't do it. I tried a million times. I could not do it by myself. So even though my hand was forced, I was scared to make the phone calls, but I was relieved, man. But you're right. I would not have done it.
Oftentimes, we have to be pushed into the direction where we need to go because we don't have the courage to do it ourselves, right? You get pushed into that direction. And it's necessary. Mm-hmm. It's all necessary. Now, your bosses, Jen, your bosses, now you have to, you're not the top.
Nope. Not even close at that point.
How do you communicate that to your bosses? Like, hey, I got this guy, he's got an alcohol problem. Because not every supervisor is going to see things the same way you do.
No, and I think most people probably didn't see it the way I saw it because they didn't have the relationship with Keith that I had and the squad. And yeah, you're right. A lot of things were rolling through my head at the time. I meant it when I said your job will be back. It wasn't I'm just going to tell him that to make him feel better. And I 100% wholeheartedly believed what I was saying. Your job will be here. I didn't know how I was going to convey that message. I didn't know what communication I had, but I knew that it had to be thoughtful. I knew that I had to be very confidential about it. I mean, hey, we're in the FBI. I can be confidential. And I was going to tell who I needed to tell and just who I needed to tell to keep his privacy. And so that was a tough call. I think I got looked at as though initially we're not so sure, Jen, that he's going to be able to come back. I mean, there's a lot there. What are you thinking? And I said, we'll cross that bridge. I'll be in touch with his department. And I think I was scrutinized for wanting to be so supportive at the time that it's a liability. He's a risk. How could you even think that he would come back? That makes no sense. And so there was a lot of eyes on me thinking, where is she coming from? And I'm not sure we can support her.
So you see that mentality of the uppers?
I saw that mentality, yes.
That is what every cop is afraid of. Every single one of us are afraid of. Not their direct supervisor. What's the uppers going to do? Because they're going to see me as a liability. And just a side note on confidentiality. Who killed Kennedy? Oh, I'm sorry. Just wondering. That
was really good.
Yeah, just wondering. But every cop in the world is afraid of what is being said to you. While it's not being said to him, he knows somebody down the line is saying that stuff. Somebody is going to look at him as being less. And that's why we don't say anything until we drink ourselves to death. That's what we do.
So one of the things that I did do to keep his situation private, because you got to think, it's not even just talking about it to my bosses. It was, how was I going to convey this to the squad? What am I going to say to them? So what I said to the squad was this: hey guys, Shibs is going to be out for a little bit. He's got a family matter that he is attending to, and that's all you need to know. When he gets back, he'll tell you, what his situation is, and we'll take it from there. Nothing more to be said. We have work to be done, and we're going to get that done. And I will be honest with you, the relationship that I had with everyone at the time, and Keith can tell you, even across the JTTF, people have respected that from me. And it wasn't even talked about. Like, Shibley wasn't even talked about. It's, okay, he's taking care of business that he has to take care of. We don't know what it is. That's his business. We've got things to do. And that's how they focused. And I look back and I'm thinking, okay, that actually was pretty good. And they respected it and they adhered to that. And if I heard otherwise, I would have addressed it. But people, I really didn't have any issues with anybody on the squad.
I just imagine that fight at that level of trying to keep that promise, right? So you did something so gracious, but you may have just shot yourself in the foot by saying your job is here when you get out.
Oh.
Now all of a sudden you're like, how the hell am I going to make that happen? I don't have that power. Like, I can't do that.
I never expected to have the power, but what I did have control of was my every effort to make it be that I supported him and that I was going to go to bat for him. And whether or not I can control the decision above, my every intention was to give it everything that I had to make it that he was going to come back.
Can you imagine he comes out and you can't keep your promise? The people more powerful than you, the decision makers, say, nope, and hard no. And then you have to go to Keith and say, I know I told you this, but
that's what was expected anyway. That's what I expected to happen.
I'm not saying from your perspective.
Yeah.
I'm saying from Jen's perspective. You know, she's a woman of ethics.
Mm-hmm.
All right. From what I gather from you, I don't know you real well. It's the first time I ever met you, but I'm pretty sure on this one. You're a woman of ethics, and your word it means something where most people's words don't. So you told Keith that, and not being able to keep that promise, man, that's about the most anxiety-filled thing I can. That's an anxiety cake.
I think the anxiety came when he did call me and tell me, Jenn, they have me sitting here. I'm not doing anything, and they're not letting me back. And I responded to him, what do you mean you're not coming back? I said you're coming back. So how can you say that, Jenn? It's not even worth it, he said. Don't even worry about it. Don't put your neck out on the line. They're just not going to let me back. And I asked him, who do I talk to?
Your department?
Who can I talk to?
So I don't know how Jenn convinced the FBI to keep my top secret clearance intact, but she did. And the FBI was completely good with bringing me back, even though they said, if he messes up, you mess up. So
that's actually a pretty good reason to stay sober.
And that's one of my points I talk about, man.
Are you ready to enhance your skills and provide the best care to those who need it the most? I'm Kevin Donaldson.
I'm Sherry Alsop. Our trauma-informed training is here to help, and we've been traveling across the country delivering this essential need to departments and organizations of every size, shape, and makeup.
We come to you with on-site training so you don't have to worry about travel or scheduling conflicts.
This isn't just a class, it's an interactive experience. You'll learn directly from subject matter experts who teach from a victim's point of view, putting you in the shoes of those who have experienced trauma.
This approach allows you to understand trauma on a deeper level and to better serve the individuals you work with.
We'll guide you through new interview techniques that prioritize a victim-centered approach, ensuring safety and empathy in every conversation.
And for those of you in law enforcement or other fields, our training includes post-credits, giving you the extra added value and recognition for your commitment to professional growth.
We offer references upon request to show just how effective our training can be.
Don't miss the opportunity to improve your understanding of trauma and make a real difference in the lives of those you serve. Get in touch with us today by going to sherryalsop.com and let us bring trauma-informed training to your organization.
Together, we can make a lasting impact.
When you perform for your boss, and it's a real boss, you want to overperform. You want to do a little bit extra because this person is a good person, and you want to maintain their credibility inside the organization. So you want to make them look good. So you overperform, and that's actually a great model to stay sober because you like Jenn as a boss, and now I'm like, well, guess what? Her success or failure all relies on my shoulder. So I better get on my A game.
That's 100% what it was. And then, just going back to her getting to know everybody, I mean, now it's, if I mess up, it not only hurts Jenn, it hurts her husband, Rob, that I've met. It hurts her 2 kids that I've met. So it was a big motivation to put forth 100% effort into not messing up. And, you've been there that first 6 months to a year. It's hard to string those days together, man. But it was a huge motivation.
If I told you some of the stuff I did to stay sober, you'd think I was insane. All right, because I was out of work, which was the worst thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm out of work going through the retirement process. I did anything I could to keep my mind busy. I taught myself how to plate braid. Do you know what plate braiding is?
No.
Okay, plate braiding is used for one thing in this world. It's used to make bullwhips. Okay? My wife would be a better one to ask for this. I was making a 9-foot paracord bullwhip, right? Steel shot center, handle and everything. I still have it. It's gorgeous, right? It's hooked in my office. It's hooked on the table, and it's I couldn't do it all in one day, so I would do a fair amount. My wife comes in there, calls my doctor. She thought it was some sort of weird suicide machine. I taught myself how to forge steel. I taught myself, believe it or not, I made alcohol. That was kind of stupid, but I made alcohol. I just did anything, because I didn't have that. Like, my bosses cast me aside. I was persona non grata. You're fortunate to have somebody like Jenn.
100%. But, coming out of rehab and going back to the police department, I got to get through that level first.
That's weird that you have more of a problem with your police department than you do with the top level law enforcement agency in the country.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was told by a boss that I was a liability. I sat at a desk for a month playing Candy Crush, man, for 8 hours a day. And I was like, give me something. Give me a stolen friggin' laptop to look. I need something to keep my mind occupied. And I was told, you're a liability. You're lucky you still have a job. Just sit at your desk. So that's what I did. And Jenn would call a lot, and she'd be like, so what's going on? I'm like, Jenn, fine. I was like, I'm not coming back. They definitely told me from jump, I'm not going back to the FBI. So I was like, I'm not coming back. Like, just let it be. I'm happy I have a job. I'm trying to get the sober thing.
Because you asked for help. This is
what
insane.
And then, so I don't know if we've mentioned this, but Jenn's nickname on the squad was Honey Badger, because you don't upset the Honey Badger. And the Honey Badger's relentless, man. So she finally says, who do I need to talk to? And she's like, I want to sit down with your chief. And I was like, Jenn, she's like, Keith, make the appointment. I'm like, oh, okay.
The one thing I realized, when a chief of police has to sit in front of an FBI, you'll see them turn into a little rookie talking to Joe Pistone. They get completely intimidated by upper level law enforcement, CIA, FBI, Secret Service. I've watched it over and over again. They get so intimidated.
So I set up the appointment, and Jenn came, and I was kicked out of the office. And I mean, you can tell them what you said there, Jenn.
So I want to back up, though. I want to back up to how I figured out what I could even say to the chief, who I had not met before, right? And I'm going in, and we talk about intimidation. It's what am I going to say to this man who doesn't know me? And how am I going to convince him to allow Keith to come back to the Joint Terrorism Task Force? How am I going to do this? And I've never been a cop, but I'm going to give credit to my husband. And I know if he's listening to this at some point, he's going to be very like, how is this happening? So it's on the record now, hon. I actually went to him for some advice. And I said, you were a cop, you were a trooper, you were a detective, you know the language. What do I say? Here's everything I'm thinking. Here's what I want to do, but help me sort of craft the right message so that it can be received. Because it's one thing to go in and think you're going to talk to someone and they're just going to, oh yeah, we'll let Keith come back. And it's another thing to go in knowing your audience. And so my husband was that audience, right? And so he can help prepare me in a way where I can make a connection with that chief. And so we talked quite a bit, and a large part of it comes down to this. At the end of the day, you're the chief of this department. You have an employee who raised his hand and said, I have a problem, and I went and got help. If you allow that decision to completely destroy his entire career, then what message are you saying to the entire department that's watching how you're handling it? And at the end of the day, that's really, if you take a step back and think about it, there's a winning formula for a conversation.
You have to put the liability on them, right?
Yeah.
So in that particular instance, if that you have a cop doing what they're supposed to do, we all want cops to ask for help, right? This has been around. Police suicide, police addiction is nothing new. It's been around forever. You have a cop that's doing the right thing, asking for help. He does it, he clears, and then the department is holding him back. So now, when nobody comes, this is the conversation I would have. I'm a little bit more abrupt than you. You're a little bit more gracious when it comes to this stuff, I would say. So now, when any cop has an addiction that never says anything, goes out and crashes their car and kills 4 people, that's on you. If he takes his life for any reason, because he can't talk to anybody because he's afraid to ask for help, because we've seen what happened to Keith, that's on you. Now all of a sudden they have the liability on them to go, whoa, hang on a second. You got to kind of put them back on their heels.
And that's exactly the point. The point is, if you take this man's career completely away, destroy it, no one's going to open their mouth. And then it's going to lead to someone having a domestic, someone drunk driving, someone killing themselves. It gets worse. So where does the solution begin? It begins with doing the right thing by the employee that did the right thing. And Keith did the right thing. He did the right thing. I also agreed to be personally responsible on a day-to-day basis and check in with the department, and that if he screwed up, then you know what? Then that's on me.
I don't even want to be personally responsible for my kids.
Well, you know what? I got to be honest with you. Keith Shibley is someone that I had on my squad. I knew that family, and in my mind, he deserved a chance. That's it. He deserved a chance, and I did not want his life destroyed, and so I was going to give it every shot, and I did. I went in that office, and I spoke to that chief, and man, I didn't know if he was really going to say yes to me or not, but I was going to give every effort to get him to yes. And so we talk about making the phone call. It felt really good to be able to walk out and ring, 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 ring. And
So
he's
annoying.
like, hey,
This one was so annoying.
hey, Jenn. And I'm like, I'll see you on Monday.
Said a little more sarcastic.
I
than
said it
that.
probably
Like,
a
I
little bit
told
more.
you so.
I got nicer in my older age, but I probably said, I'll see you on Monday. And that to me
That's a win.
was a win, a tremendous win. And to have him come back to the squad and to have him walk in with his head held high and to have him eventually, right, leave the task force on his terms was a major win. And I got to be honest with you, I think, and he'll share it. You know, what did people even ask him, or what did they say? He has some really funny stories about it. But to have him come back and to welcome him back on the squad, I feel like everybody did the right thing at that point. His department, the FBI, the squad.
Now, what if he screwed up?
It was on me.
No.
And I was going to have to bite that bullet, right? I was going to have to bite the bullet. But you know what? Life is about unknowns. So
Did you have a plan?
if he screwed up, 100% ownership of it. I had supported him. He screwed up, and that's on me.
That
And
could have derailed your entire career.
it could have. Yeah. Yeah. But at the end of the day, then don't be a supervisor if you're not willing to put a risk on your people. That's kind of how it is. And I was willing to take the chance, especially given what he put in. And if you're not willing to stand by your people, and I'll say it from the beginning, then maybe being a supervisor isn't for you.
Standing behind the right people.
The right people.
Okay, so
Right.
if it was somebody different than Keith, maybe somebody else in your squad you kind of knew was a little bit of a bonehead, and,
Exactly.
you know, and if they were in that similar situation, you'd be like,
Well, exactly. So making an educated decision about the people, if you know them well enough, you'll know which ones. I mean, there were people that had been on the task force that shouldn't have been on the task force. And I had conversations with that supervisor of another organization, and that was handled, right? So it's not everybody gets oh, absolutely. It's an educated understanding of who's who and where you're willing to put your time, effort, and sort of your trust and faith. And you gotta kind of throw that out there a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I had faith that he could do it. I trusted that he was going to try to do it. I also knew that he could screw up, right? It's an addiction, and there could be a screw up along the way.
well, he hid it from you for so long.
Exactly. And so I took this chance. I took the chance.
You, and that's why I sometimes when you name these episodes, you hope that you get it right. I think I nailed it on this one. I'm going to give myself all the credit in the world. Nobody helped me in the world. This one's on me. But calling you a guardian angel, especially Keith, is completely appropriate. Because had it not been for guardian angels, look out for us, give us what we need, not always what we want. They look out for us, especially in our times of need when we are the most vulnerable. They're the proverbial picture you see with the wings wrapping around people when they need it. That was you with him, looking out for him when nobody else was. So no matter what you went on to do in your career, no matter what you went on to do, and in Bernie Madoff, counterintelligence, counterterrorism, it doesn't matter. That right there is it's one of the shining lights in your career. Not for what you did, but the whole concept of what you did.
So, Kevin, the spectacular thing about this is this. When we left to drive up here 4 hours, she was like, I don't know what I'm going to say. I didn't really do anything. And every time I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? Like, if you just listen.
Oh, don't call her a dude, man. What's the matter with you?
I said, dude, to
okay.
I would never.
Well, you were talking about conversation. I'm like, dude.
I would never upset the honey badger.
He knows better.
But if like you just listen to all the stuff she just said about meeting with the FBI people, she took time out of her own day at home with her husband to freaking rehearse what she was going to say to save my ass. And then she went through all those other steps, man. That is all extraordinary things that if you put 100 supervisors up there, you might find 2.
The percentages are so low.
Are so low. And it even, you know, when I was at the FBI, I even had bosses because I would do certain things for other squads, like some online stuff. I was brought into the office one day saying, he's like, what have you been doing? I'm like, I did this, 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 and this. He goes, yeah, but what have you done for me? Meaning his squad. And that's like, so I was just very fortunate. It's a God thing, man. It was people put in your life for a reason.
And not because you want them, because you need them.
Yep.
Yeah. So this episode was important to me because I really wanted to show that there are people that look out for you and not over you. Okay, and I've said this from very beginning. I've been the lowest of the low, and I've been the boss. Okay, I don't like that term boss, but I had to make sure that the people underneath me were okay. Right, and if they weren't okay, guess what? I took it very personally. I'm not providing something. I'm not doing something. I'm not doing my job. Okay, because if I'm just here to sign off on their reports when they do, that's not a supervisor. You can do that with AutoPen. Oh, did I say that? Oh.
And there's a lot, even.
Do you have AutoPen at the FBI? I'm so fascinated by the FBI. So.
One of the biggest things in law enforcement now, man, it's just like sergeants are very important. They're probably the most important people in the department. But I'd say 80% of them are managers now, man. They'll tell you what you did wrong, where you need to be, how you need to do this, but there's very few leaders by example. Very few. And that's what we kind of, I hope law enforcement gets back to in all stages, from the ground up to the FBI. But I was just very fortunate in my situation.
So, Jen, you are now retired. You have this victory sitting next to you. I'm sorry, I don't know what contest in hell you won to get that trophy, but he's there. No, I'm so happy to hear this because I think it's going to give a lot of people hope in order to say, no, there's some good ones out there, and you can do this stuff. Because Keith knows me well enough to know that the opening up the conversation is the hard part with police officers. Opening up a conversation and say, hey, you need some help, man. You need, or them to be vulnerable enough to come up and say, hey, I need some help here. But it has, just like you don't stand up for the wrong person, cops aren't going to come to the wrong person. They're not going to come to certain bosses because they know they can't trust them. So for you, what did this do for you mentally, especially as time moved on and you saw Keith was starting to stabilize?
So one of the things that I am very fortunate to have done is retire, like you mentioned. And in retirement, you have some time for a little bit of reflection. And when people talk about, I'm on the other side now, and I can look back at my career and I can just say, if there's anything in my career that I am most proud of, it is watching the fact that Keith has his family intact, his wife, his children. That to me is really what success looks like for my career. It's not the awards. It's not any case that I mean, yes, I loved those cases and working those investigations. I'm very proud of all of that. But when it really comes to a career, what have you done for the people around you? Whose life have you impacted? And looking at Keith, right? There's the result of leadership. I was very fortunate to have very good bosses in the beginning of my career. Like I mentioned, Pat Carroll, Steve Dorito, particularly. Both of those men in my career were the type of leaders that I wanted to be and that I wanted to emulate in just how they treated their people and how they sort of enveloped us and cared for us and had that personal and professional connection all in one. And so to see Keith standing here the way he's standing here with his career intact, canine, a family, children, and while it may have derailed for a little bit, man, there you go. There's a success in my FBI career that I can be proud of. And supervisors who are listening, it's not just about the paperwork. It's not just about the numbers. It's, yes, all of that is important. But do you really know who's looking up to you? How do you know them? What are you doing to be their role model and pay it forward? And at the end of the day, if you don't find joy in their success, then you might want to reconsider sort of what you're doing out there, because at the end of the day, his success is what has made me happy.
Well, there's a key component to law enforcement that everybody overlooks, and I don't care whether you're in the FBI or whether you're in Mayberry Police Department. The main goal of police work, administratively, patrolman, dispatcher, is to be corrective, not punitive. And that is on the road while you're conducting your job. You're trying to correct bad behavior. Now, a lot of times, correcting bad behavior does entail some punishment. As a supervisor, you need to be corrective and not punitive. If Keith would have gotten taken off the JTTF and never allowed to come back, that's a punishment. All right? You were able to give him enough grace where he could correct his bad behavior. So it works on down the line. Whether you're doing your job and you're dealing with that person who is speeding, or you're dealing with the financial crimes of Bernie Madoff, you correct bad behavior. You don't punish it. So I think that encapsulates everybody. We're getting to the end. I want you to give out where our audience can find you. I don't know if you're high-level FBI. I don't even know if you have social media. So you got to tell me. Keith, where can we find you?
LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, just those three right now.
And I told you to get a website, man.
I'm working on it, bro.
You're working on it. You're working slow.
I am.
You're working as fast as Tom in there.
I
got to push these guys a little bit.
Because of me, though, Jenn, her goal was to help little people, and she in turn helped a little person. So I don't know if she realizes that she's achieved her lifelong goal by helping.
Well, it continues too, right? So you just, and I want to get into this just real quick, just this one mention. You had a tragedy at your airport at Reagan National.
Yeah.
You had a plane go down, bunch of kids, helicopter collision. And when I saw it happen, you're first, I'm like, oh, shit. And I text you because I didn't want to call you. I didn't want to be like the normal cop say, hey, what's going on? Are you there? I just want to text you. And I don't care what was going on. It was none of my business. It's just like, hey, you okay?
Yeah.
And I hear that you did the same thing.
Did reach out to him just to check on him, because those moments in time and the things that he had faced throughout his career, I knew that could be a triggering effect. So, hey, Keith, how you doing? You need anything? How can I help? Those phone calls go out, and I made that phone call to him after that.
And he called me. I think he called me the next day. Yeah. Just to listen, just a quick debrief. Hey, what's going on? And, I kept tabs on it because people knew I knew you, and they knew you were there, and they're calling me to see how you are. right? And I said, don't worry, I got eyes on him. I'm all right.
But even if you're busy and you can't answer the phone right now, you see who's calling. And you see the people calling that they just want to know what the but then you see the people calling that are in your close circle. So even if you can't call them back, they're there and they're thinking about you. And then when you call them the next day, it means a lot. It makes a difference, a big one.
So Jen, where can we find you?
So I do have Facebook, and I do have LinkedIn.
Okay.
So I did break out into the social media realm after I had Facebook for a while, but I did get LinkedIn about a year ago before I was going to retire.
Honey Badger. That's all I'm thinking is Honey Badger.
Honeybadger.com. Yeah. I do not have Instagram at this point, but
you want to give those out, or you want to keep those private?
It's my name on LinkedIn, Jennifer May. Easy to find.
We will put little lower thirds if you just go like this.
That's right. And it's my name on Facebook as well. So if there's anybody out there, I'm more than happy to take a message.
So we are coming to the end of this thing here. 2 episodes, fantastic story, going from the FBI to addiction and how you were the guardian angel of Keith, and you are the reason why he's sitting in front of me happy and healthy as he sits right now. And I'm grateful. So I'm always grateful for Keith, but I'm even more grateful for you for protecting my friend. And you've gone through a lot of suffering in this journey, both of you. Okay, you as a supervisor, the possibility of derailing your entire FBI career, something that you felt this purpose for, and Keith, as your career could have been over in a heartbeat, and you have to deal with the fallout of your bad decisions. But there's always a lesson in suffering. There is always a lesson, and if it's not teaching you anything, it is a wasted opportunity. So, Keith, because I want to end with Jen, Keith, what has the suffering of this whole situation taught you?
When you're in a moment where you think that this is the worst thing happening to you, it may end up being the biggest gift you've ever been given. Because that's been the best thing that's happened to me. My life has done a 180 for the positive. From not just work, but home, kids, like we talked about before, your priorities in life. And what I looked at as something that was going to implode and destroy my whole life has just made it 100 times better.
You needed it.
Yep.
You needed it to kickstart you to get to where you need to go.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a gift, right?
Yep.
It was a gift. Jen?
Never give up. Never think that you are alone because there is someone out there. Give people a shot. Do not at all ever think that you are on an island unto yourself. It is about people. It is about giving yourself to others with purpose and grace and love and caring. And that at the end of the day, you can be surrounded by a guardian angel. They're out there. So don't give up and have faith and trust in yourself, no matter how hard the day is, no matter how tough it may seem, no matter how rock bottom. There's someone willing to lay down next to you on that rock bottom floor, and they'll get up with you. Just give them a shot.
I think that's very well said. Thank you both for coming in here. I think this has been wonderful. I'm so happy that you chose to do your first podcast with us. Keith, you're always welcome in here, brother. Whenever you want to come in.
Again, man.
Except next week. You're not allowed in next week. And that's going to do it for this episode of The Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of a Guardian Angel, Part 1 and Part 2. And we learned a lot, so let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Some jobs just find you. Rob, Jen's husband, is a rock star. Persistence overcomes resistance. No plan B is the best recipe for success. Bosses look out, not over. Some wins that you have in your life are other people's victories. But most importantly, give someone a shot. Just might save their life. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Clapper, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson, and of course, follow The Suffering Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.